The richest man in America watched his daughter die as billion-dollar machines failed until a barefoot black girl walked through sealed doors without a badge, laid her hand on the corpse, and the heart started beating again. But what rose from that bed wasn't just a child. It was a threat to every power on earth. Before we begin, click subscribe, like the video, and tell me where you're watching from. Your support helps us to bring more interesting stories like this, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let's begin. Rain tapped against the cracked windows of Grace Children's Shelter, each drop shivering through the broken panes like a warning. The room was dim, lit only by a faulty bulb that buzzed every few seconds before blinking out again. Around Mary, dozens of children slept on thin floor mats, curled against the cold, their small breaths fogging in the air. But Mary's eyes were wide open. She pressed both hands against her heart as if trying to stop something from breaking inside her. A sharp pain pulsed through her, a pain that did not belong to her body. It was coming from far away, echoing through her bones, beating against her ribs. A distant beep, then a flatline scream. She gasped. Her little body arched forward, and a sudden burst of golden light flickered from her palms, casting trembling shadows across the room. The light wasn't fire. It wasn't electricity. It was alive, soft, warm, pulsing with sorrow and urgency. On the mattress next to her, a little boy stirred. "Mary," he whispered sleepily. "Are you okay?" Mary didn't answer. Tears were already falling down her dark cheeks. "She's dying," she breathed. "She's crying for her daddy. I can hear her heart trying to stay." The boy frowned, confused, but before he could speak again, the door creaked open. Sister Helena, the shelter's caretaker, stood in the doorway holding a lantern. Her silver hair was gathered beneath a worn scarf, and her nightgown brushed the cold floor. Her eyes widened as she saw the golden glow trembling in Mary's hands. Again. "Mary," Sister Helena whispered, stepping forward slowly, as if approaching something holy or dangerous. "Breathe, child. Let it pass." Mary looked up, her eyes shining with a light that did not belong to this world. "It won't pass tonight," she said in a voice not fully her own. "She called me." Sister Helena's steps faltered. "Who called you?" Mary blinked, and a vision washed across her mind like a tide of light. A little girl lying in a hospital bed, lips blue, wires attached to her chest, a tall man crying beside her. Mary didn't know her name, but she knew her pain. She could feel her slipping away. "I don't know her," Mary whispered, "but she's waiting for me. If I don't go, she won't wake up again." Sister Helena knelt beside her, gripping Mary's hands to hide the glow as voices stirred across the room. "You are special, Mary," she said softly. "But the world is not kind to special things. If anyone sees what you can do, they will take you away." "I'm not afraid," Mary replied, her voice trembling not with fear, but conviction. "I'm afraid of being too late." The pain in her chest surged again, then vanished, replaced by silence. A heavy, terrible silence. She has no more time. Those words chilled the air. Mary stood up. She didn't reach for shoes. She had none. She didn't grab a coat. There wasn't one. She just closed her fist around the fading glow in her palm and walked to the door. "Mary!" Sister Helena called, fear cracking her voice. "Where will you go? You don't even know where she is!" Mary paused in the doorway. The flickering bulb above her dimmed, then steadied, as if the electricity itself bowed to her presence. "I don't need to know," Mary said softly. "Her heart will guide me." And with that, a 6-year-old girl stepped out into the storm, barefoot, alone, led not by sight, nor sound, nor reason, but by destiny awakening at last. Ronald Simons had been called many things: visionary, titan, conqueror of markets, but never desperate, never powerless. Yet now, desperation clung to him like a second skin as he stalked the sterile hallways of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, his voice echoing in rage and terror. "Whatever you need, name your price," he barked into one phone, then another, pacing back and forth as though movement itself might keep Emma breathing. "Get me Dr. Ishimoto from Tokyo. No, fly him here tonight. I'll pay for exclusive rights to his research for the next 10 years, triple his grant. Just get him here." On another call, "President Alvarez, yes, I know the time. I need clearance to access your military biolabs. Yes, military, classified or not, I don't care. My daughter's dying." Assistants around him scrambled like battlefield medics in the war room of a dying kingdom. Blank checks were signed so fast the ink had no time to dry. Helicopters touched down on the hospital roof every hour, carrying experimental serums, cryocapsules, even rumors of artificial organs still in prototype. But none of it was fast enough. None of it was working. Every time Ronald stepped into Emma's room, his breath stopped. Her skin was turning glassy, her heartbeat shallow. Machines that were supposed to keep her alive now only measured how close she was to death. Then the world found out. Screens on the hospital walls lit up in red breaking news banners. Billionaire's daughter, given 3 days to live. No cure found as global medical teams fail. Camera drones swarmed the hospital like vultures. Protesters gathered, some praying, some recording, some waiting to see a king finally fall. Inside, Ronald Simons, who had never bowed to any man, walked alone toward a small wooden door hidden behind the ICU. Behind it was the hospital chapel. He pushed it open. Silence met him. Candles flickered weakly. A single stained glass window cast fractured light across the pews. Ronald hesitated at the threshold, as if an invisible force held him there. Then he stepped in. His knees hit the ground before he knew he was falling. His hands gripped the altar as if clinging to the last solid thing in his life. "I've spent my whole life building towers," he whispered, voice shaking. "Climbing higher, farther. I gave the world everything it asked of me. And now I have only one thing left." He closed his eyes, and his mind drifted backward. Flashback. Emma, wrapped in a white blanket, placed into his trembling arms for the first time. His wife, pale and smiling weakly in the hospital bed, whispering, "Protect her, Ronald. She is your heart now." He remembered how small Emma's fingers were when they curled around his thumb. How his wife had passed only days later. How he had vowed to be both father and mother, protector and provider. Back to present. Now those same fingers were losing warmth. Her heart, his heart, was about to stop. Ronald looked up at the cross before him, face wet with tears he didn't feel falling. "Take it," he rasped. "Take my empire, my legacy, my breath. Take everything. Just don't take her." The candles flickered. A strange stillness filled the air, pressing gently against Ronald's skin, like the air itself was listening. The chapel lights dimmed, though no wind had blown. The world seemed to pause. And then, the lights flickered again. Once, twice. Ronald turned sharply toward the doorway. The air tightened around him, not with dread, but with presence. Someone, or something, was coming. Not to take his daughter away, but to answer. The storm outside had turned violent, lightning crawling across the sky like cracks in glass, but Mary Brown did not flinch. Her bare feet splashed through rainwater as she stood before the towering gates of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, gates that had stopped presidents, kings, and world leaders from getting too close to the billionaire's daughter. 2 armed guards stood like statues at the entrance. Their eyes scanned everyone who approached. Their radios buzzed continuously with frantic voices. Yet when Mary stepped forward, neither guard lifted a hand. Their eyes slid past her, unfocused, as though she were made of mist. She walked right between them. No one spoke. No one moved. Inside the lobby, chaos spiraled. Nurses ran from wing to wing. Reporters banged on glass. Security dogs barked wildly at something only they could sense. Yet every time Mary passed them, they whimpered and shrank back. She approached the ICU corridor. The doors were secured by biometric scanners, mechanisms that denied entry to even the world's most powerful without clearance. But as Mary drew near, the doors slid open silently on their own, as though bowing to her presence. Every light in the corridor flickered. At the far end of the hallway stood Ronald Simons, surrounded by doctors. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking from a cocktail of rage, exhaustion, and terror. When he saw the small figure in the pink sweater walking toward them, his brow knotted in confusion, then fury. "Stop her!" he barked. "Who let that child in here?" But no one moved. Doctors turned to look, but their hands froze mid-air, as if held back by an unseen force. The head nurse tried to speak, but no sound came out. Mary walked past them without a word. She reached the glass doors of Emma's ICU room just as the monitor inside emitted a long, piercing tone. Emma's heart had stopped. Ronald stumbled backwards, a sound tearing from his chest that was not human, but animal. The primal cry of a father witnessing the death of his only child. "No! No! No!" He lunged toward the bed, grabbing Emma's hand. "Bring her back! Do something!" The lead doctor looked at the clock. His voice was hollow, resigned. Time of death, 11:59 p.m. Silence. Emma's eyelashes lay still against her pale cheeks, all color drained from her lips. Machines dimmed to standby. Nurses bowed their heads. Mary stepped through the doorway. Ronald spun toward her, eyes blazing. "Get her out!" he roared. "Get this child out of my sight!" But Mary did not look at him. She stepped up to the bed, her eyes fixed only on Emma, as if she could see something no one else could. "She is not gone," Mary whispered. Ronald's rage faltered. "What did you say?" Mary placed her small hand gently over Emma's heart. "She is waiting." Then, it happened. A soft glow shimmered beneath Mary's palm. The room temperature rose, not with heat, but with presence. Lights flickered overhead. The very air began to vibrate, responding to something ancient, powerful, and pure rising within the little girl. Nurses gasped. The doctor dropped his clipboard. Ronald stood frozen, tears still clinging to his lashes, not daring to blink. From Mary's hands, a golden light began to bloom, soft at first, like dawn creeping over a horizon. Then brighter, swirling, pulsing with life. It sank slowly into Emma's still chest, and the heart that had been silent stirred. The golden light from Mary's hands did not blaze. It pulsed. Soft at first, like the faint breath of dawn brushing against the darkness. It spilled across Emma's chest, warm and alive, flowing not onto her, but into her, like a river returning to its source. The heart monitor, which had flatlined into death's cold silence, suddenly flickered. Bip. The faintest sound. A ghost of a heartbeat. Then the machines surrounding the bed began to glitch, screens flickering, wires sparking with static as if every device in the room was trying to interpret something beyond science. Doctors stepped back in alarm. A defibrillator whined, turning on by itself. The temperature in the room rose, causing frost on the windows to melt in rivulets. Bip, bip. Emma's lips, moments ago drained of all life, quivered. Color, soft pink, then warm rose, began to return to her cheeks. A tiny pulse fluttered beneath her skin. Ronald clutched the rail of the hospital bed, unable to breathe. "Emma?" His voice broke in disbelief. "My baby." Suddenly Emma's chest rose. A shallow breath, weak but real. A nurse screamed. Emma's next breath came stronger. Her fingers twitched beneath the blanket. The heart monitor erupted into steady rhythm. Bip, 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 bip. Life. The golden light faded from Mary's hands, but its echo remained, shimmering faintly over Emma like a veil of stardust. Mary stepped back, chest heaving, not from exhaustion, but from deep emotion, as though she had simply remembered something ancient and powerful. All around them, phones began to ring. Alarms blared. Hospital security radios shouted over each other. Then the world saw it. A news drone, hovering outside the ICU window, had been streaming the entire event live. Millions watched in real time as a billionaire's dead daughter breathed again under the touch of a barefoot child. Global breaking news. Miracle caught on camera. Child revives billionaire's daughter after heart failure. Comments flooded screens across continents. "This is fake. This is divine. Find that girl. She's an angel." Ronald, the man who once commanded nations, sank slowly to his knees. Not from shock, from reverence. He bowed his head, not to the machines, not to the doctors, but to a little black girl standing barefoot in a borrowed hospital gown. His voice cracked with the sound of a man surrendering everything he once knew. "I was wrong," he whispered to her. "Whatever power you carry, whatever you are, thank you." Mary's eyes, bright with tears, looked not proud, but sorrowful, as if she knew this moment was not victory, but the beginning. "It was not me who saved her," she said softly. "It was love, calling love back." Ronald frowned through his tears. "Love?" Mary nodded toward Emma, who now slept peacefully, her heartbeat strong. She heard her father's tears. She heard the world praying for her. She didn't want to leave, so love reached out and pulled her back. At that moment, alarms rang from every device Ronald owned. Board members calling, security alerts, politicians demanding answers. But the final message came from his head of security. "Sir, someone has breached the financial network. There's chatter. They're coming for the girl." Ronald looked up sharply. Mary turned toward the door, eyes distant, as though she could already see the storm forming beyond the walls. The miracle had happened. Now the war for it would begin. Far above the glittering skyline, in a conference room made entirely of glass and darkness, 6 figures sat around a black marble table. They were not politicians. They were not ordinary businessmen. These were the power brokers behind nations, the silent architects of global control. They were the Council of Power. No cameras, no recordings, only voices of men who moved the world with a gesture. On the table, a holographic display flickered to life. Emma Simons's ICU room replaying the moment of resurrection from the live news feed. The golden glow from Mary's hands reflected in their eyes. Silence. Then Victor Harland, Ronald's longest and deadliest rival, leaned forward. His voice was cold steel. "This changes everything." Another council member scoffed. "A medical anomaly, a child's trick. We'll expose it." Victor's eyes narrowed. "You saw the machine's glitch. You saw death reversed. This is not medicine. This is power, power beyond our control. And if Ronald controls it," a woman in a blood-red suit finished, "he becomes untouchable." A ripple of agreement moved around the table. "We had him cornered," she continued. "His stock was falling. His daughter's death was to be the final blow that allowed the takeover. But now, with this miracle, the world sees him not as a fallen empire, but as chosen." Victor stood, hands clasped behind his back. The screen shifted, now displaying Mary Brown's face, captured entering the hospital. "That girl," he said, voice low. "She is the variable. If we control her, we control the miracle. And if we cannot control her—" He let the sentence hang like a knife in the air. The woman in red finished it without a flicker of emotion. "We erase her." A single motion was made with Victor's finger. Order initiated. Meanwhile, back at Simon's Global Command Center, an underground facility built to withstand nuclear attacks, Ronald watched his security feeds with ice in his veins. Alerts flashed across multiple screens. Suspicious financial movement detected, unauthorized drone activity near hospital, intercepted message. The girl must be acquired. Ronald's jaw tensed. "They're not after my company anymore," he said. "They're after Mary." His chief of security, Daniel Kane, turned to him. "Sir, every government agency is demanding access to this girl. Military, pharmaceutical, religious institutions. Everyone wants her." Ronald's eyes darkened. "No one touches her. She saved my daughter. If the world wants a war, they can have one. Mobilize elite detail. Double the guards at every entry point. Secure my daughter and Mary in the red zone." "Yes, sir." As Daniel issued orders, alarms flickered through the facility. The building shuddered, not from impact, but from a shift in the air, a presence neither mechanical nor human. Mary was standing in the doorway. She had come silently, like a thought forming in a dream. Her small face was calm, but her eyes held something vast, something infinite. Ronald stepped forward. "Mary, you're safe now. I won't allow anyone to harm you." Mary shook her head. "Mr. Simons," she said gently, "they are not coming because they are angry with me." Ronald frowned. "Then why?" Mary's gaze drifted beyond him, as if she could see through walls, through time. "They are coming," she whispered, "because what healed Emma is calling others. They fear it, but they cannot stop it." Ronald took a step back, chills crawling up his spine. Mary turned her glowing eyes toward him. "The miracle is not the end, Mr. Simons," she said. "It is the beginning." And in that moment, the lights went out. The war had begun. The Simons estate, once a symbol of luxury and untouchable wealth, had become a fortress. Armed drones circled the skies. Guards lined every corridor. Steel shutters sealed each window. Every inch of the mansion was fortified. But despite the defense, a chill rested in the air, thicker than fear. It was anticipation, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Inside, Mary Brown sat on the nursery floor with Emma Simons, the 4-year-old now fully revived, cheeks rosy, eyes bright, not with sickness, but with wonder. Mary handed Emma a crayon. The little girl didn't draw castles or ponies. She drew hearts made of golden light, spiraling outward in circles. Emma pointed to the largest glowing heart. "That's you, Mary," she said in her tiny voice. "You're the light that keeps the dark away." Mary paused, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "I'm not the light," she whispered, brushing Emma's hair. "I'm just holding it, until you're ready." Downstairs, Ronald watched the security monitors. Blips appeared at the edges of the perimeter, dozens of heat signatures moving through the night. "Positions!" barked Chief Kane. Guards raised weapons. Drones locked targeting systems. Ronald's pulse pounded. Once he would have reached for his private arsenal, his mercenaries, his offshore security force. Tonight, he reached for something else, something new, something unfamiliar lodged in his chest since the night his daughter died and breathed again. Faith. His phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. The child must be surrendered. This is your only warning. Ronald deleted it. Then the attack began. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the outer wall. Lights flickered. Drones swerved out of control as a cyber signal jammed their guidance. Armed mercenaries in night vision gear stormed through the breach like shadows with rifles. Target located. Move in, crackled through their comms. Ronald rushed upstairs just as doors slammed open and armed men poured into the mansion. Emma screamed and clung to Mary. The lead mercenary raised his weapon, aimed not at Ronald, but at the child with the glowing hands. Mary stood slowly. "You cannot harm what was sent to heal," she said, her voice unwavering. The air changed. Lights flickered. The walls seemed to hum, as though the entire house were alive and listening. The mercenary scoffed. "Take the child." He stepped forward, and the lights exploded overhead in a blinding burst of white and gold. A shockwave of light pulsed from Mary's small body, sweeping across the room like a living force. Every weapon sparked and fell apart in the mercenaries' hands. Their night vision goggles shattered. Men were thrown backwards, not by wind, not by sound, but by light that carried will. Ronald shielded his eyes, heart pounding, not from fear, but awe. Emma, still holding a crayon, whispered, "Mary is light." And Mary spoke, not in a shout, but with quiet power that silenced the world. Those who come in greed will be blinded. Those who come in fear will be stopped. Only those who come in love will pass. As the remnants of light faded into the walls, alarms blared with renewed urgency. This was no longer a rescue. It was a war. And Mary Brown had just chosen her side. The enemy forces never made it past the second gate, not because bullets stopped them, not because security overwhelmed them, but because light itself refused them entry. In the aftermath, the world entered a frenzy. Videos from drones, illegally streamed by mercenaries, showed blinding light erupting from within the Simons estate, followed by silence. No casualties, no bloodshed, just men, powerful men, crawling away in terror, crying that she sees inside you, she sees your heart. Within 24 hours, the world turned its eyes not to Ronald Simons, the billionaire, but to the barefoot child now living in his mansion. Governments demanded answers. Stock markets trembled. Religious leaders declared signs of prophecy. Standing before a global press conference, Ronald approached the podium. His face was not the face of a corporate warrior or kingmaker. It was the face of a man who had stood at the threshold of death and chosen a different path. Camera flashes erupted as he spoke into the microphone. Power is not found in wealth. It is found in love, in the hands of a child who had nothing and gave everything. Gasps rippled across the audience. From this moment forward, half of Simons Global will be dissolved and rebuilt, not as corporations, but as children's medical sanctuaries, fully funded and free of charge to every family, every nation. No child will die because their parents are poor. Not while I still have breath. Journalists shouted questions. Is this permanent? What about your shareholders? Are you giving up control? Ronald raised a hand. You ask if I fear losing my empire. I have already lost everything that ever mattered. And then I was given a miracle. Wealth was never my power. My daughter was. Love is. Then he turned, and the world fell silent. Walking onto the stage, hand in hand with Emma, was Mary Brown, dressed not in silk or diamonds, but in a simple white dress. The cameras zoomed in as Ronald knelt beside her, a billionaire kneeling before a 6-year-old girl of poverty in front of the entire world. "Today," Ronald said, his voice breaking with emotion, "I not only make Mary Brown a legal part of my family as Emma's sister, I declare before the world she is the protector of my child, and a symbol of hope for all children who have been forgotten." Emma wrapped her tiny arms around Mary's waist, face glowing with calm joy. Mary looked out at the sea of cameras, not proud, not fearful. Her expression was serene, as if none of this praise belonged to her, and she did not want it to. A journalist shouted from the front, "Mr. Simons, are you saying this child holds divine power?" Ronald looked at Mary, then back to the world. "I am saying you can no longer measure power by what you own. You cannot rule a world whose miracles you do not understand. And the future no longer belongs to the mighty. It belongs to the pure of heart." Mary closed her eyes then, and for a moment the wind itself stilled. Somewhere beyond that press room, powerful men in hidden chambers watched, their plans collapsing. Because with one act, one adoption, Ronald had done what they feared most. He chose love over control. And in that choice, the world began to change. Thank you for watching to the end. I believe you enjoyed it. We have a lot of other interesting stories like this lined up for you already, so click the image showing on your screen to watch the next. Don't forget to subscribe.